How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, we're going over my triple Game Week 35 team selection. This video is going to be a little bit longer than the usual team selections, and that's just because of the fact of all the news that's come about this triple Game Week 35 and everything that we have to address. To start off the video, we'll be doing our usual review of Game Week 34 and seeing how my own squad got on in that specific game week, and then we're going to turn our attention to everything triple Game Week 35 related. This includes looking at the usual squad and how my team is currently setting up with no transfers used. And then we're also going to turn our attention to the blank Game Week 36, which is going to be the blank game week on the horizon in our FPL schedule. And I just want to kind of give you guys an indication that we still do have to focus on this blank game week so that we can maximize the amount of points that we do score from now to the end of the season. Once we've kind of taken all those facts, all those news about the game week schedule into account, we're then going to move on to my transfer plan, and we're going to decide how to use my 2 free transfers and the potential of even taking a hit. To finally wrap up the video, we're going to be touching on an updated free hit draft for those of you guys who are using the chip. The main reason being is that if you guys do follow the channel, we released a free hit plus a wildcard draft video yesterday evening, and literally as we released the video, the Premier League announced this triple game week for Man United, so obviously that video became quickly outdated. But that's just the luxury of being an FPL content creator, and fortunately the content and the videos become quite quickly outdated, but not usually this quickly. So in that updated draft, we'll be covering what I would do if I was to use the free hit chip. It's also going to be useful for those of you guys who are using just free transfers so that you can kind of look at players and focus on those players to boost your side for the upcoming triple. Also, something that I wanted to touch on is that I did rewatch some previous videos, and I realized that I do talk quite quickly in them, especially when I am covering a lot of detail or going over some stats. So that's something that I am working on throughout this video. You guys will probably notice that I'm trying to talk at a more moderate pace. Please drop your comments down below if you guys do have any more feedback on how I can improve my videos, as I always do appreciate that. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. So going over a quick review of blank Game Week 34, and the reason I'm saying it was a blank game week is that I only had 8 players feature for me. So yes, that Manchester United vs Liverpool game was postponed, and I really was hoping that they would go ahead because Nat Phillips was going to be in that starting lineup, and then I would have actually had a full starting 11 because obviously Holding also didn't feature for Arsenal, and I really needed Nat Phillips off the bench to give me a full starting 11. But yes, it actually turned out to be a blank game week with that postponement, so we only had 8 players featuring in my starting 11. So obviously I did get a red arrow there. Luckily it actually wasn't too big of a red arrow. I think it was about 5k places. So yes, we did manage to score 35 points, which is probably the reason why we did get a red arrow, but currently just sitting below that 40k mark. Every single game week that kind of goes on and we don't get a green arrow, the game weeks are kind of narrowing down here. That top 10k just seems further and further away, so we might have to kind of come to the realization that top 10k could be a little bit too far to push for. But as you know, I will always try, and hopefully that top 10k becomes a little bit more realistic in the upcoming game weeks. But going over the squad, there's not much to talk about here with only 8 players featuring, so this will be quite a quick review, and the quicker the better because it was such a bad game week for us. But starting off in goal, we have Mendy from Chelsea, who actually managed to be one of the shining lights in our own team, especially that defense. As you can see, his partners there, Cody and Lowton, not returning many points, but the 7-point appearance will always be kind of appreciated. I managed to pick up a save point as well, but unlucky not to maybe get any bonus points. And as you can see there on the bench, Rudiger did pick up a knock in that first leg of the Champions League against Real Madrid, quite late on in the fixture, I do believe, so he unfortunately didn't feature, so no double clean sheet from Chelsea in the end. But I was kind of happy to get a clean sheet from Mendy because there wasn't many teams in Game Week 34 that managed to keep clean sheets. Already spoke about Cody, Lowton, not much to talk about there, only 1-point and 2-point appearances there, and then Holding also didn't feature in the squad. It was a little bit of a weird one with Holding because he wasn't even on the bench, so I don't know if he was rested or just kind of had an injury, a little bit of a knock maybe that Arteta didn't tell us. But not even featuring on the bench is a little bit suspicious, and with David Luiz now coming back to the lineup apparently from that injury, I don't really think that Holding is going to be in the starting 11 for many of the game weeks left this season. Going on to the midfield, we had one really star performer here, and that's going to be Heung-min Son with a lovely 12 points. I mean, it's no Gareth Bale score here, obviously him scoring a hat-trick, But Son kind of allowed us to get a better scoring game week. I know in the top 10k, the top 100k, Heung-min Son is quite highly owned, but he's definitely not 100% owned, so kind of any point helped in that regard. But I mean, Sheffield United just weren't up for it against the Spurs, and that pace in behind really punished Sheffield United, and that's how Heung-min Son managed to pick up the 12 points. The other midfield player was going to be Jesse Lingard, who managed to blank. Unfortunately, even though West Ham did score some goals, it was Antonio that managed to convert those chances, and kind of Lingard didn't get on the end of any assists or any goals, and that's why he only got the 2 appearance points. So a little bit surprised there, considering that I thought that Lingard was one of those main talisman for West Ham, but I guess it's only when Antonio is off the pitch, because as soon as Antonio is back on, he definitely looks like the best West Ham option going forward. The front line, we had our captain here, Harry Kane, who ended up blanking in a 4-0 victory for Spurs. I mean, how many times are you going to see that? 4 goals scored by Tottenham Hotspurs, but no attacking returns at all, not even an assist from Harry Kane, as he just ended up with a 2-point appearance. But luckily, he was quite highly owned, highly captained, so most people kind of went for him, so he weren't really punished too much with going with the English striker, maybe over someone like a Heung-min Son. The rest of the front line, we've got Iheanacho here and Vardy. Iheanacho just returning the 5 points, managed to get an assist, and then Vardy again blanking. But Vardy, I did actually watch a lot of the game after that red card. It was a little bit surprising that Leicester ended up drawing to Southampton, but I guess that kind of just shows that this season's really unpredictable. You can't really judge what's going to be happening in these fixtures, and I mean, Vardy did have a couple of chances, so maybe a little bit unlucky, maybe not to get some attacking returns in this one, but at the end of the day, we own him, only 2 points. That's something that we're just going to kind of have to take and move on. On the bench, nothing to talk about there, only kind of Forster, who was actually benched for McCarthy, and the thing you guys have to kind of note is that McCarthy actually played really well, so that kind of worries me as a Forster owner. We'll be talking about whether he's going to be starting the upcoming game weeks in the next couple talking points. But now let's go on and look at how my squad is setting up for triple game week 35. So before we talk about my specific team selections and my teams, how they're currently setting out, I wanted to just give you guys a little bit of a reminder. I did do a video about this triple game week 35 when the news was dropped, but I thought that I would go a little bit more in depth here and talk about that United team and the options as a whole. So as you can see there, a triple game week for Manchester United. It's Aston Villa, Leicester and Liverpool. As far as the schedule does go, they'll be playing on Sunday evening, they'll be playing on Tuesday evening, and then they'll face Liverpool again on Thursday evening. So yes, about 3 fixtures in 5 days, which is absolutely mental, but I guess it was the United's fault for that Liverpool game being postponed, so they're kind of having to accept this and just kind of roll with it. But 5 days, 3 fixtures, that kind of leads to about 1 day rest or total rest between these fixtures. A little bit more if you count a kind of traveling time and everything, but I think that traveling time definitely won't be that relaxing for these players. I mean, Aston Villa, Leicester, Liverpool, 3 tough fixtures in my opinion, but that doesn't mean that you can't still get some FPL points out of those Manchester United assets. It's going to kind of all come down to which 3 United options you guys think will be playing all 3 fixtures. If I had to kind of pick my selection, I probably would say from the defense, a player like Maguire is definitely going to start all 3. Doesn't offer the most attacking threat. I mean, he is kind of an aerial threat on those set pieces, but besides that, I don't really think there's too much attacking threat from Maguire. And then if you move on to the attack, I think a player like Fernandes probably has the highest chance of featuring in all 3. And you could also look at maybe like a player like Rashford, who probably will get the most minutes, a second out of that attack. So if I kind of have to go for 3 players, we'll be talking about a bit later on in my updated free hit, but I think Rashford, Maguire, Fernandes are probably going to be the 3 players that end up getting the most playing time. A player like a Luke Shaw and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I mean, those players should probably get about 2 fixtures, and then we might see some rotation there. I mean, Alex Telles, we also have Williams in the kind of wings there waiting to get a game, so I think maybe one of these fixtures they might be rested. But the thing I kind of wanted to remind you guys of is that Man United are playing in the Europa League tonight. And I think that lineup, that team sheet is going to give us a lot of in-depth analysis into maybe an expectation of a starting 11 for Aston Villa. I mean, if a player like a Fernandes starts tonight and then he gets brought off on that 60-minute mark, you'll feel a little bit of comfort there, maybe bring him in, as he should be starting against Aston Villa then. But if a player does play a full 90, that pretty much means that they probably will be rotated against Aston Villa. But the thing you also have to take into account is that you don't kind of have a full starting 11 on your bench that's simply going to replace. So we will have a couple of players here that start all three. It's just going to be quite hard to predict which of those United options would start. But my kind of recommendation would be Maguire, Fernandes and Rashford is the players that I think have the highest chance of starting all three fixtures. I mean, Rashford does have that little bit of an injury knock there, but I think his minutes will be managed. He'll probably start most and then come off about that 70-minute mark. But I mean, 70 minutes in all these three fixtures equals quite a lot of minutes in a triple game week, so you guys should be happy with that. But then one thing I also want to kind of note is that now United do blank in the blank game week 36. That's a little bit annoying there because not only are we going to load up on these United options, but then in game week 36 we're going to get the repercussions for that and they're going to have a blank game week. So just make sure you guys are prepared for that. I think the best strategy probably is just to use the free hit if you guys do have it, but that's kind of a luxury that I unfortunately don't have, and that's what we're going to be talking about when I do talk about my transfer plan. But now let's get on and look at my current team selection. So as I mentioned, I want to kind of look at my team selection before we talk about the transfers, just to show you guys what I currently am dealing with my own starting 11. So this is the current starting 11 that I do have with no transfers used. I've got Mendy and Rudiger against Man City and Arsenal, which is a little bit annoying. In both of those fixtures, I can kind of see Chelsea conceding, but you also must remember that Chelsea lineup does have a lot of defensive threat. And that's the thing I like about maybe going for these two options, is that I can maybe see one clean sheet out of one of these two games. I mean, that Man City game could be quite close, but then the Arsenal game might be close as well. So you guys kind of could get 2 clean sheets from Chelsea, but I think that might be a little bit of wishful thinking. The other thing you have to keep in mind as well is that Mendy could be rotated, Rudiger could be rotated, so we don't even have that certainty of these two players starting, which is maybe leading me towards maybe taking one of these two players out for United defender. Holding, Phillips, 2 cheap options. I don't really have much faith in Holding. We spoke about David Luiz being back in training, confirmed by Arteta yesterday. So I think that pretty much confirms that Holding won't be starting, and we might even get unlucky and he gets benched for the first game, but then faces Chelsea in the second one, where I don't think he'll be keeping a clean sheet. So Holding is definitely one of the players that I would probably like to take out or at least bench for another option, but I simply don't have that luxury with the current setup of the team, as I simply just have single game week players on my bench. Phillips, I'm pretty confident that he'll be starting both of those fixtures. I think that Fabinho in midfield is really integral to that Liverpool success, so I'm pretty sure Klopp will pair Kabak and Phillips together in both these fixtures. And with that United team sheet, we managed to see that Phillips was back from that injury, so I'm pretty sure that he'll be starting both of these fixtures. So at 4 million, not too much risk there, and I simply just can play him and hope for the best. In the midfield, we've got Greenwood, Salah, Jota and Son. So I currently have Son and Kane, and that's probably one of the talking points that you guys will be considering, because that's kind of the easiest way to get a lot of value in your team. Is Son is expensive, Kane's expensive, so if you downgrade those two assets, you can afford another United option, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the free transfers that I currently am planning. But currently the only United option I have is going to be Greenwood. With Greenwood, I'm pretty confident of getting at least 2 games, whether that be the Aston Villa, Leicester or Liverpool game. I probably would prefer the first 2 and then ignore the latter one, but I think against anyone, Greenwood can kind of score, has really good stats, so I'm actually quite happy that I managed to pick Greenwood up a couple of game weeks ago, as I think that he could be a nice little differential going into this triple game week. We then have Salah and Jota, and I mean, whether Jota is going to start is another thing. He wasn't going to start in that team selection for Manchester United, so that's quite an interesting thing there. We kind of expected him to get rotated, and that's exactly what happened. So I'm kind of hoping if maybe Jota comes off the bench, he could maybe get a return, but then Salah's going to be that main man from Liverpool. And if Manchester United actually had this double game week and not a triple one, I might have considered going for the Salah captaincy as well. Then in the front line, we got Vardy, Iheanacho and Kane, and that's the kind of thing with Vardy, is that I could also downgrade Vardy, I could downgrade Kane, but downgrading Vardy before double game week with Newcastle just doesn't really sit right with me at the current moment, and that's why I'm kind of contemplating what I should go for. I probably would take Vardy out next game week before blank game week 36, but that's something that we could deal with next game week and not this game week, and maybe against Newcastle he absolutely bangs, and if I do take him out, that's going to hurt quite a bit. On the bench, we've got Forster, Lingard, Cody, and then also Lowton. The one thing I wanted to talk about with Forster is that there was a little bit of a rumor coming out of the earlier press conference from the Southampton manager that Forster was going to start the next 2 games. That's basically what Hassan Hutel said. He said that Forster will play the next 2 fixtures since McCarthy has played the previous 2 fixtures, so that would mean that he's going to play both fixtures in this double game week. Now he's come out today and said that they'll continually rotate throughout the season, so maybe take taking back the words that he did say, and actually that's the thing, is I actually hope that he doesn't play the 2 fixtures this week. I hope that he plays against Liverpool and then he gets benched against Crystal Palace, as that would mean that he'll play next game week in blank game week 36, and you'll see shortly that I really do need him to feature. But I think if he was going to play both game weeks, I wouldn't play him anyway. Just don't have much faith in that Southampton defense, so I'm pretty sure that Mendy might rack up a couple more save points than Forster does. But as I mentioned, this is the current team with no free transfers, and let's move on how the squad is looking for blank game week 36. So the reason I want to talk about blank game week 36 and look at my own squad is that I think a lot of people are kind of getting clouded by this upcoming triple game week, and on the horizon is a blank game week 36 that you guys have to worry about, because you're not going to want to take a load of hits this stage of the season. And that's what I'm kind of thinking about here, is that do I really want to take a Manchester United option in to not only have them blank next game week, but maybe have to take a hit to take them out, or what should I do? So it's kind of a lot of thoughts going on in my head, and it's whether to attack the triple or play a little bit more conservative and get a full starting 11 in a blank game week 36. Because that's the thing, if you bring in a United option, yes, they have 3 fixtures, but then they have a blank. And if you bring in a player that doubles this week and then has a fixture in the blank, that's also 3 fixtures over the next 2 game weeks. So you guys just have to kind of look at it like that, and maybe the option that you bring in won't face Liverpool and Leicester, because you maybe consider those fixtures to be a little bit harder than maybe another team does. But as you can see here, I don't have a full starting 11. I've got Vardy, I've got Iheanacho that won't play, so I actually only have 9 starters. I'm pretty confident in the backline besides Forster, and you can see here that I need Forster to start against Fulham at home because Mendy doesn't have a fixture, and that's what I was kind of talking about, that I actually hope that he gets benched against Crystal Palace in the double, because then at least I'll be assured that he's going to start in blank game week 36. Cody, Phillips, Lowton, pretty confident that all these 3 players will start. And then in the midfield, we actually have quite a nice selection. We've got Heung-min-Son, we've got Jota, Salah, and then Lingard. And then in the front line, we only have Harry Kane currently. And that's what I was talking about with Jamie Vardy, is that next game week, I probably would take him out for a DCL or another player like that, for example. And I mean, that Wolves fixture is quite nice for Son and Kane. So maybe I don't want to take out Son and Kane necessarily to kind of free up some budget. But this is the current team for blank game week 36, and I think that you guys should do this analysis as well for your own squad, just to make sure that you kind of are not putting yourself too much in a box with that triple, and then when the blank game week 36 comes about, you only have about 5 players starting, because that would be an absolute nightmare. So now moving on to the transfers that I currently am planning, and this kind of selection is the no-brainer transfer in my opinion. It's taking out Jamie Vardy, it's taking out Heung-min-Son, and bringing in Calvert-Lewin and then also Fernandes. Now Fernandes, 100% the best captaincy option to go for this week. I reckon a couple of people also go for the triple captaincy, so I wouldn't be surprised if his ownership was over 200%. If you guys can recall, the last double game week, we had Harry Kane over 200% ownership, and we kind of saw there that even if you captain him and he scored, it was negative for you. Quite a crazy kind of concept to go for, and it's kind of only been introduced to me this season with kind of this high ownership of selected players. But as I mentioned, the no-brainer transfer, because I'm bringing in Bruno Fernandes, the best captaincy option, and he's so highly owned, and if he manages to bang, I'll definitely be looking at a major red arrow in game week 35, which is not really what I want to do at this stage of the season. So I mentioned no-brainer transfers here. I'm losing Heung-min-Son, I'm losing Vardy. I mean, if Spurs do have a good game against Leeds, that'll come back to bite me, but I'm kind of more worried about Jamie Vardy. Has that Newcastle fixture, plays United in the second game, so still has a double game week, so he could still do some damage to my own squad, and that's why I'm kind of worrying about it a little bit. So these are the current transfers that I am considering. I could also kind of put in a complimentary -4 hit here to bring in a player like a Maguire. I don't really want to double up on that Chelsea defense, as I don't even know if Mendy or Rudiger is going to start. So my current thoughts is that I would use the money in the bank to upgrade Rudiger to Maguire, as I do favor Maguire from that defense, as I think that he'll start all 3 fixtures. Doesn't have the best attacking threat like a Luke Shaw or maybe an Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but I still think I want that security of all 3 fixtures, and I think that United could get the occasional clean sheet in that triple game mix. This is the transfers that I am considering, but there are other variations, obviously. My kind of conservative approach was to bank a transfer, actually only use 1 free transfer, maybe upgrade someone like a Rudiger to a Lindelof, but then Lindelof probably won't start all 3 games, which is going to be quite annoying, but that's kind of the only value that I can afford. I can't afford anyone else, a Luke Shaw, an Aaron Wan-Bissaka, a Maguire. Those players are simply too expensive, so I can only afford maybe going with the Lindelof, and then I might think that I'm not really attacking the triple game week enough, and that's why I think that kind of attacking it and going for Bruno Fernandes might be the right call to go for. But then I kind of am swapping 1 for 1 here. I'm taking out Jamie Vardy who blanks, But then I'm also bringing in a Bruno Fernandes who blanks. DCL plays against Sheffield United, which is a nice fixture, and I probably would do this transfer next game week anyway. But then also I'm losing out on a Heung-min Son who I would have to take a hit to bring back in and kind of just to get 10 or 9 players for blank game week 36. So it's a little bit of a hard scenario right now. I'm kind of trying to find the right balance between triple game week 35 and blank game week 36, and I think that to kind of go for the no-brainer transfer might just be the way to go for my current lineup. So finally, to wrap the video, as I promised, we'll be going over my updated free hit draft here. It's going to be a 4-4-2 formation, similar to the one free hit draft that I created in yesterday's video. And kind of the only thing I've done here is that I've brought in Harry Maguire instead of someone like a Luke Shaw, and I've upgraded a Ward-Prowse to a Rashford. I think that I also downgraded Jamie Vardy to DCL because I needed some value, but I kind of think this is the perfect combination of the sides that I think will do well in a triple game week 35. So starting off, we've got Guaita and Zaha, so kind of getting the best of both worlds there from a defensive and an attacking point of view with those lovely Crystal Palace fixtures. And then in the defense, I've chosen to go for 2 Liverpool defenders just because I think they offer a little bit more value going forward as well compared to the other Liverpool attackers. So Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, no brainers in my opinion if you guys are going to use your free hit. Lucas Digne and Maguire kind of complement them quite well. I think that Everton could get some attacking returns and hopefully a clean sheet out of those 2 games that they have in double game week 35. And then Maguire, I've already spoken about him enough, just kind of my most assured defender to go for from United. I've also gone for the double up in the United attack because I think that Rashford and Fernandes will hopefully get the most attacking minutes out of that United side, and I think those fixtures could offer some good attacking threat for Rashford and Fernandes. And then I've got Salah here, a little bit of a no-brainer as well, considering that Liverpool do now have a double game week. And then finally in the front line, I've got Calvert-Lewin and I've got Iheanacho. I mean, Iheanacho, you can't simply drop him because he's so cheap, so in form at the moment. And then DCL picked up a little bit of form recently, so I think that he should do well in triple game week 35 as well. The rest of the players are simply just bench fodder, so you guys can kind of rotate to whoever you want to. And I'm pretty sure that Mitchell and Brewster won't start anyway, so at least you have Smith Rowe if he needs to come off the bench, with Arsenal also having a double game week. But this is basically wrap the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did, and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. Hopefully see you guys in a Deadline with Dayvy live stream tomorrow as we kind of finalize these 2 free transfers that we have to make pre that game week 35 deadline. I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.